Welcome back. I'm very honored and humbled and excited about today because I have a friend of mine that is actually really good friends with my brother, and then I like tagged along to the relationship. During my hard reset and before my hard reset, Jonathan Bolden was there for me to help guide me as I started my own company, and then obviously all the necessary steps. And then when I went through the nastiness of the breaking of myself and starting over, Jonathan was there to help my family and especially Tracy to guide her through running a company without the CEO, which I am forever indebted to him. He's an incredible man and a great leader and has this storied career of just helping companies tell their story. And so hopefully we're going to tell a little bit of Jonathan's story today and his hard reset. So I would like to at least recognize my good buddy, Mr. Jonathan Bolden.
Thanks, Martin. It's good to be here.
Dude, so glad you're here.
I will say we didn't sell many roofs while you were out, so it's a good thing you came.
But it's still here. That's a really good point.
We're still here.
We had a $71,000 month, I think the first month that I was away that I remember. But you guys kept it afloat, you and the Trap Dog.
We were counting the number of roofs we had to sell just to break even, and we barely hit it. But
Man. But I was grateful. She had no one to turn to. Like, we didn't know. And to be honest, like, even today, sometimes it feels like we don't know what the heck we're doing.
Man, it was an honor to be there and to stand with you and your family in that time.
One of my favorite ideas that came from you that we use still today with our families that buy a roof from us is our underlayment package, which is where we have a homeowner and a family, do their handprints or do a prayer, and we put it underneath all their shingles to kind of guide and protect the house. And that idea came from you, which is just the coolest thing, I think.
Well, I think it reflects the heart of this company. And, I love that you guys talk about we're crafting the future one roof at a time.
Yeah.
And, our future is protected by and guided by the Lord. And if we can cover our homes with those truths and those hopes, what a better way to...
So good.
I was reading in my devotional this morning, Psalm 91, living under the shadow of his wing. Even that picture, the roof is, we live under the shadow of that. And what a cool idea.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question that I didn't kind of let you know to kind of start us off, because everyone really likes this question. So what is your pet peeve?
Oh, wow.
I mean, you may not have one.
No,
Mine,
I have lots of, I'm trying to work them out of my system. I one thing I'm working on with my kids and I work on myself is you have to put in work and effort for things. I think in today's world, we think things come quickly. It's when my kids kind of want something on the spot, or they haven't worked for it, or they want a prize, or they want an incentive, I'm like, we got to put in some work for that. I was raised in a pretty middle income family in South Alabama, and and that family came from really poor, low income people, and you worked for everything, and so how do we keep that hardworking mentality? So that's probably my biggest thing.
Yeah. Oh, we have a sign out right now, which is from my good buddy. He's a doctor and he's a coach. So we call him Dr. Coach Gifford. He's kind of like a spiritual advisor to me, but his quote that he tells his soccer team is, all that you can control is your attitude and your effort.
I love that.
And so that quote, when I heard it, stuck with me as like, man, you can have a good attitude. Like if the refs give you a penalty and it doesn't matter, or you're mad at your dad, like you can control your attitude and you can control like how much effort you're putting in.
Yeah. I like that Dr. Coach. That's pretty,
He hates it. He hates it. Like literally, like in the classroom, he's Mr. Gifford or Coach Gifford. He's not. He got a doctorate so that he could support his family.
Wow.
So
there you go. Effort and attitude.
Yeah. He's a great human. Growing up as a kid, JB, like, what did you think your life was going to look like in South Alabama?
You know, it's funny. I distinctly remember in third grade, my teacher said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, "President of the United States."
Okay.
So I guess I was dreaming pretty big in South Alabama. That didn't work out, or hasn't yet. But yeah, I don't think I had. Yeah, that was probably the only declarative statement to that end. I mean, I thought maybe I'd go into engineering. That's what I studied, but that didn't turn out that way either. So,
did you go into engineering because like you were always tinkering with things, or your parents always said like, "Oh, he's going to be an engineer one day"? Like, is that?
Well, I was good at math and science, and so I think that was a natural next step for that, at least in Alabama. I mean, you kind of went into business or maybe engineering or worked in a factory and or sales or something. And engineering seemed to be the degree that would kind of give me the most options.
Yeah.
And I didn't like mechanical or chemical is probably too detailed. I like bigger picture thinking. And so I picked industrial, which is more systems and processes and how things fit and work together, which I did really enjoy.
Would you say that you use that degree today?
Oh, 100%. I'll never forget. Remember Milo's?
Yeah, sweet tea.
Sweet tea, hamburgers. So there's a Milo's right off campus. And
Where's campus?
Auburn.
Thank War
you.
Eagle.
War Eagle. So I think I was in my sophomore or junior year. I'd taken a couple of classes in industrial engineering, and we were learning about efficiencies and probabilities and systems. And I'll never forget standing in Milo's, and there was, I think, maybe one checkout counter or maybe two, and the lines were backing up. And for the first time in my life, I think I had a thought to the effect of, well, if they added another register, this would go a lot faster. And, you know, that was just maybe obvious to some people, but it was just kind of that systems thinking that I was beginning to learn and pick up around queuing and flow through rates and throughput rates. And like all those things are fun and interesting, and how things work together and make things more efficient. And so, yeah, I use that all the time now.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Are you worried about are you worried about what AI is doing to the processes? And I mean, it's hard to really know because it changes every day, but as soon as you said like the third line, I'm like, yeah. And if it was a computer that they could order,
sure. Yeah.
And then that is like crazy efficient.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, every day what we're doing with AI is changing. In my business, which is marketing and advertising, a lot of the decision making around where to invest your dollars can be estimated pretty accurately at this point by AI. And then a lot of the content that you might use for marketing and advertising can also be generated by AI. And so it's fundamentally disrupting our business. This is a debate we're having. It's really interesting where in the business it will disrupt, because at this point you still need to prompt and guide how the AI is basically applied. It was interesting. I was talking to a colleague last week, and there's a sense that those who have the context will know how to guide the AI, whatever it is, the prompt, the GPT, or the agents that you're developing. But how do you learn that context? And so I think about my kids I've got a daughter in college. It's like, how do you help her, if she's going to go into a field like that, gain the context needed to know how to guide the intelligence?
And the context being like, we need to create a story to sell this product.
Yeah, and it's even like, for this kind of business, this kind of thing works. All the things you've learned over 10, 15, 20 years by being in all sorts of scenarios. Like I always said, that going to business school in some ways was like basically gaining, on your desktop, you have all the shortcuts, and you can click into that folder and get that thing, that folder, get that thing. Like business school was a box of shortcuts around business. When you bring up a topic and we talk about finance and accounting of your business, I'm not an accountant, but I have a few shortcuts on my desktop that I know enough about that topic to be able to ask you some questions and then help guide you to your accountant. And so it's knowing the shortcuts that are the things that you want to ask the AI or the AI to do, because you have those experiences or that knowledge bank.
So we won't right now at least be replaced by AI.
Well,
because of the context.
I think there will be a lot that will be replaced. I do think in creating how AI is used and how agents are developed, people who have the context will know how to best create and apply the agents at the beginning. There will become a time where they can likely
create the
they'll create the next version and the next version. It'll be interesting. I mean, I heard something a couple weeks ago where I think leading researchers, and don't quote me on this, this is secondhand, but this person was saying leading researchers are saying 90% of all work can likely be automated through AI within the next year or two if you had the right people who have the context and the depth of knowledge developing the agents around it.
Wow. I just introduced to some of my staff it's software. I don't think it's AI, but basically we can take data from a roof diagram and it can talk to the software where it literally does the profit loss and the purchase order for me within 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And currently I have someone that does that. That's kind of, it's not their full-time job, but it's 20, 30 hours a week.
Yeah.
And that's literally like happening live in our company, like right now, which is scary.
Yeah. And it's fascinating. We talk a lot about, like, ideally it increases the capacity of people, right? Hopefully it's not replacing. It's helping them free up time to then do more of the same or new and different, because now they have a team that's basically a team of automated agents or artificially intelligent agents.
Are you currently using an agent?
Our teams use dozens of agents, but we are working on those every day, basically, of how that we can better, augment, automate, and transform our business.
It's crazy, the world we're living in right now.
We've got a guy who's doing some incredible things around predicting revenue of businesses, and he's basically built a team of agents. And so it's a team of agents versus a team of humans. Now, he still has a team of humans too, but it's like this team of agents is now accelerating all that we can do from something that used to take weeks or months now down to 3 days or 3 hours, And so in that case, it's creating a ton of capacity. If we give more of those people, that team of agents, we can serve, instead of serving 3 clients, we can serve 30 clients with that. So that's the hope, is that you see that kind of exponential increase of capacity versus a replacement of. I'm sure there's also some level of, at some point, there'll be trade-offs.
Wow. Well, the premise of the podcast has nothing to do with agents.
That's a hard reset.
Yeah, that's a hard reset thing. But like, that's the whole point of this conversation is like, do you have a moment in your life where you were going one direction and you were like, I can't do this anymore? Where you needed to hit the reset and start over and abandon this old version of JB and bring on this new version of JB.
Yes. And I that moment kind of is like a car crash happening slowly over several years. And your brother was very instrumental in my particular moment.
Shout out to the Trav dog.
That's right. Yeah, I'd kind of unpack that over the course of 2016. Probably that moment started to crack open in mid-April of 2016. He and I were out with his friend Matt Mann at Matt Mann's Ranch in Texas. And short story is I'd been having a multi-year affair. And I was coming apart at the seams, living a double life. And the backstory to that is that, marriage is hard. Life is hard. And in my life, some of the narratives that I had believed is I have to hold everything together. I have to perform and in some ways be perfect. Holding all that together in a marriage that wasn't going well with more and more kids. We ended up having 5 kids quickly. Was harder and harder. And particularly, I wasn't dealing well with the pain in my marriage. And, some of that was very run-of-the-mill normal pain. But the anger and the hurt and the disappointment from that, from life, I was internalizing increasingly and coping through travel, through work, through alcohol, and then ultimately through this affair. And so here I am into a multi-year affair, deeply, deeply angry at life, at myself. I remember Travis and I went out for a run, kind of up the driveway of the ranch, which is I think a mile or two long down to the main road, and I just almost keeled over. And Travis is so loving and kind, and he's like, "Good buddy," and he kind of knew some things were not correct. He could spot
as good friends.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He could spot, and I had teased out a few things, and I just spilled it right there on the dirt road, in West Texas or South Texas. And said, "Then this is what's going on." And he was so kind and loving. And
do you remember his reaction?
Yeah, I mean, he knew to be to immediately say, "Well, that's wrong. That's clearly you're in violation of the 10 Commandments." None of that. It was just gosh, well, okay, here we go. And he knew that I was deeply angry at life. I was angry at my wife, which is how I was externalizing my own anger at myself. I think he even said something like, "Well, gosh, that must be nice," he was not never condoning, but he normalized, "Okay, this is what you've done. This is what you're doing." I mean, pretty quickly thereafter, and he basically just was with me. And one thing I've really learned a lot about in this process is you just have to be with people. When your life is falling apart, you don't need to step in with any sort of morality. I mean, you don't need to toss it out, but what you need to step in with is presence, is with love. And it was him and then two other friends and really close friends in Minneapolis, particularly, who I told them a few months later, and they just sat there and said, "Okay, well," and I think nobody was super surprised. And both of them, Travis and these two friends, had similar, let's talk to somebody about it. Let's get in some therapy. And then Travis did something that was pretty bold of him. He said, "Hey, I'd like for you to tell Laurie. I'll give you 6 months to tell Laurie, but I want you to tell her by December the 15th, 2016.
That date.
It was soon thereafter.
Yeah.
And about a month or so after that time, well, actually a couple days after that moment in Texas, it really did begin to kind of fall apart. I had an interview. I was leaving a job. I had an interview in New York with a different job. I was super excited about it. It was a big firm in New York, and I went up there with a lot of expectation and feeling really good about myself being interviewed by this company in New York. And in the middle of the interview, I had a panic attack, in front of 8 or 9 people who were I was presenting to. And
what did that look like?
I could barely talk. Couldn't put two thoughts together. Struggled to get through the presentation, obviously.
And this is you're pitching yourself.
I'm kind of pitching myself. I was doing a case study they'd given me.
Yeah.
And, after that, basically the guy said, "Hey, thanks for coming. We're going to go ahead and cancel the rest of your day."
I can imagine, you're in Manhattan, in a high rise, pitching these guys probably a fat salary, it's
all of the above. And I walk out in the street, cars are zooming by Fifth Avenue. I'm just like, what just happened? And my life was literally falling apart.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, anyways, that that was the beginning of hitting. Soon thereafter, I also met with a therapist that I had seen previously with Laurie, that Laurie was still seeing. And he asked me to go home and read Lamentations 3, which I won't take the time to read now, but it's a pretty, one of the more aggressive chapters in the Bible. And it's unpacking some of basically the devastation and punishment that Israel faced kind of in their exile. And I think I understand of that book, it's a picture of some of what they faced in exile. But then it ends with this proclamation of, yet I know that your mercies are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. And it's just this incredible picture of, and sometimes God needs to walk us directly into the greatest pain of our lives. And sometimes he allows that to happen. But he's there in that. And that kind of sounds like why would God, but like, he knows that that's what we need. And if we will sit in it and walk all the way through it, he's there in it. He's there on the other side. I think there's even a verse that says, and you take my hand and you walk me into the darkness. But the thing is, he's walking with us and in us. And anyways, Nate Shattuck gave me that, and I had no interest in reading it.
No way.
And I
didn't know it was Nate.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
there's a great dude.
I dismissed it and was pretty hard of heart. And ultimately, fast forward, I did sit Laurie down on December 15th. I waited all the way to the...
Because Travis said December 16th.
Yeah.
Did he call you and say...
Yeah, we met up, I think on the 14th. He's like, hey, good buddy, just to... I want to hold you to this. And I remember he, with some fear and trembling, it's like, I might lose my friendship, you know? And
did you plead with him to...
No, I knew it was time. And I'll be eternally grateful for his courage. And I was ready to begin turning myself in. I wasn't ready to change. I just knew I needed to begin to turn myself in. And so I told Laurie, my heart was still pretty hard.
Were you at, you tell her at the house, you go to the park?
We sat down after we put the kids down for bed, and we basically read her a letter. And I was, again, pretty hard-hearted, and she, I think, for a couple months wanted to try to save things, and I was kind of off and on of waffling, and basically she ended up saying, all right, I'm out. And I needed that. I don't ever, be careful here. I mean, I think divorce is a pretty hard reset. And I would encourage everyone to be incredibly intentional before they pull that ripcord. But I think in our case, we needed a hard reset. I needed a hard reset. And that probably was one of the things, the only thing that would get my attention.
To lose everything.
Like
kids and
wife. And then one of the first weekends, and my parents, and that's a whole different story of how they came around the corner of learning to sit with me in it. I mean, at first they were more, there's some judgment there. And this is kind of December timeframe or November timeframe before I tell Laurie, and they were feeling tension because I had told them. And at first they'd been gracious, but then they were feeling the tension of knowing and what to do about that and my actions and what they should say. And so they sat me down and said, we don't agree with this. And I think my mom read some scripture, and I basically got up and said, F you and F you, I'm out. And I said the full word, which I think was deeply shocking to my parents.
It's deeply shocking to me, good buddy, because I don't know if and the enemy had just hardened the...
and and there's backstory with my parents and that relationship, and it was very, I'd always felt a lot of expectation and need to perform for them. And so in some ways, I think looking back, even the affair and the acting out in those ways was the ultimate explosion of all the expectations that had taken on, and had worked in therapy to try to release. So, powerful story to test this together. My dad went to Travis, and basically sat with him and said, "What do you think Jonathan needs in this moment?" And my dad's like weeping. And I think Travis basically said, "Hey, you just need to sit with him and be with him." And so my parents came back humble and said, "Hey, you can stay with us. You can bring the kids here. We won't ask any questions. We have a few things we'd like to ask of you. But we love you and we're here." And again, that just, and I'll look back on that, and my dad's humility in that, and my mom's humility in that was probably one of the first life-saving moments that began me back on the road to healing and recovery.
So good. So often, I heard this saying once, was talking about how our kids determine their relationship with God of how we treat our kids. So the way that we treat our kids is the way that they think God treats them.
Yeah.
And so for your dad, Larry, right?
Yeah.
For Larry to come to you humbly and filled with humility and say, like, "Jonathan, I love you." Like, that's what our Heavenly Father did.
Yeah.
Like, he knew, like, long before all of this, he knew that day was going to come, and he's written the story, but he's like, "I'm still going to love you regardless."
Yeah. I mean, it's always stunning to me, and I'm not a theologian, but in Genesis 2 or 3, when Adam and Eve have sinned, God shows back up in the garden, and for their, what seems to be a daily walk that they take in the morning in the cool of the day, I think it says. And from what I understand, when he says, "Where are you, Adam and Eve?" it was more of not a, "I know what you've done, where are you hiding?" It was more of a, "It's time for our walk. I want to go for a walk with you." Well, of course he knows what they've done, but yet here he is still showing up, asking for a walk. Not like, "Let's talk about what you ate."
Yeah.
And it was more of how they reacted in hiding and not coming for the walk. Like, imagine what had happened if they'd said, "Let's go for the walk." And, it's like God's on this perpetual rescue mission to invite us on that walk and basically for us to receive his love and to let that transform us.
What would you say was the motivation? Like, what was the motivating factor? Was it the panic attack where, like, you realize, like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but, like, in the way that I heard it is like, "I'm a fraud." And that's what happened, where you was like, you were pitching this, like, who you are and what you can do. And then internally, like, "Oh, I'm not being faithful to my family." And like, what?
Yeah, I've often used this analogy. If you read Harry Potter or know Harry Potter,
I know Harry. Yeah.
So Voldemort, and this is probably really bad theology or psychology, but every time Voldemort, I think, I can probably get this wrong, like killed somebody, it like divided his heart. Like, evil divides our heart, basically. And when you're living in the secret, or you're living in sin, there is this division of your heart, and like you're holding two different lives and maybe more lives, and the weight of that continues to diminish you. And it became like holding those things was just too much. And I don't know if as much as being a fraud of just it, literally the weight of walking in two different realities became too much. It's pretty cool. Laurie and I went a few years ago to see Bono. He wrote a book called Surrender, and then he did a few performances of the book. It's kind of almost like a one-act play or a one-person play, telling stories from the book and singing songs, and it's an incredible show. Well, we touched down in New York, And I realized it was 7 years to the day
No.
of that interview
And the panic attack.
and the panic attack. And here we were in New York to see this show called Surrender.
I mean, I just think sometimes God's just like up in heaven. He's like, if he gets it, it's going to be so good. You know? It's like, if he gets it,
Isn't that
and then you
amazing?
get it,
It's
you're
just
like,
like-
oh man, he's so creative.
And you think about 7 years and
Yeah, the
you know,
Bible.
this is, we're on this journey if we'll accept it of surrender. And it's never complete. And I mean, but it was a cool arc of like, and that was almost at 2 years after we gotten remarried. And
Also, now the people know.
yeah. Oh,
So, yeah.
that's Bolden.
But, you know, can you go in just a little bit of
Yeah.
detail of like how, like what happened?
Yeah. So
You came clean, you got
it
divorced, and
we got divorced. I'd say 2017 was still a pretty big descent into hitting bottom personally. Like I remember grappling with, and I started a thing at the end of 2017 where, you know, we at the holiday season, we have a week on, a week off is kind of our arrangement. And so I used my week off to go basically have silent retreats. And basically, I mean, I remember just like, I need to get away, and like, what happened and how did we get here? And I'm a year into single parenting. My kids are crying every weekend and they're absolutely miserable. And I'm angry at myself, and I'm not getting much better at that. And that anger spilling into anger at my kids.
your kids are angry at
My
you.
kids are angry at me.
And this silent retreat is like you just journaling and praying, or like,
And it wasn't a full silent. It was like I found this place that basically a Christian apologist had started in Switzerland back in, I think, the 60s or 70s, called L'Abri. And you go there and you kind of spend a half a day in reflection and a half a day you work in the community. But I flew in and out of Paris just to get a few days there, and then I trained down to L'Abri, and Paris is where we had honeymooned. And so I remember the first day, and this kind of gives you a sense of just kind of, I was just chasing, like, what happened? How did we get here? And I remember I was on the kind of the east side of the city, and we had honeymooned in an apartment on the west side of the city. And so I took a run one morning and basically took a run over to the apartment we had rented. And I just remember standing there and looking at him like, what happened? You know, and that kind of became one of the first intentional acts. Well, right before that, actually, right before I left for Paris, I basically charted out a marathon and trained for it, and ran a marathon through the city of Atlanta on my own, and had kind of run past a lot of key places that meant something to Laurie and the family, like our first apartment, like where the hospital where the kids were born, and was just trying to run backwards into the story.
yeah,
And that gets back into just as our friends need to sit with us in our story and our pain, like I realized how much I needed to sit in the story. Like what were the decisions? What were the pain points? What were the trauma, little T trauma that, you know, nothing, but like that got us here.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And then 2018, more of the same. And my life was still kind of up and down. And praise God, I had a great job that I still have today. And that place was just a safe environment. I could thrive at work and kind of sort this stuff out as my life was really, I mean, falling apart, like, or my family. And by the end of 2018, I got to the point where I remember one Sunday taking the kids back, and I had kind of lost my cool, and I tended to sometimes lose my cool. Like if they weren't obeying or they were talking back or they were upset. And I just remember just bawling my eyes out in the car with the kids and like, why does this keep happening? And the same two guys who had lived in Minneapolis and then, you know, sat with me, one of them was seeing this therapist in Minneapolis and recommended that I do his intensive, which is like a 3-day intensive. And so I called this guy. I'm like, much help as you can give me. I was ready for whatever. So ended up doing that. So this was 2 years into the divorce. So that started 2019. Oh, actually, this is a fun little nugget. It's another God flex for sure. The second year, I didn't go back to Libria. I went to this new place in Italy that was actually like off the grid. I could use points for. It was like this kind of random Marriott property. Silent dinners and kind of modern monastery type place. And every morning, the guy who ran the place and owned it would have devotionals in Italian.
Do you speak Italian?
No. And so he's got these like books from the Roman Catholic Church that have scripture every day. It's like a daily devotional. So they're reading through this every morning. I'm just sitting there listening to them. And one morning he says, "You read." And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to try my best at Italian. And I start reading, and I know, and I mean, it's a romantic language with enough crossover to English. And I start reading like Korea. I'm not going to remember the Italian, but basically it was created me a pure heart. Oh God. It was David's Psalm of repentance when he had an affair with Bathsheba.
Man.
And like,
how can you not feel that God loves you, man, when those things happen?
And this, I literally was just, it was unbelievable. And it's like, and that had, the notion of creating me a pure heart, and like, and what the message, my favorite translation from Eugene Peterson says, is creating me a Genesis week. It's like, do the whole thing all over again. And like, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And so I'll leave that like week and from that, and like God had dropped that on me. And like, I see you. I know you want a pure, clean heart. Like, I know you're seeking. And then I go to the therapy retreat, and that was an absolute game changer. I understand a lot of what I had taken on emotionally, psychologically, even spiritually, and to kind of throw that off and to say, okay, that really was another clean start. And then just some crazy things happened that spring that God just kept dropping in. And then
the house.
Well, that came. So then in June of that year, 2019, is when I took Elise to JH Ranch. And so all these things have been building up. And then I take Elise to JH Ranch in 2019, which is a father-daughter camp, or a week at the camp where it's just fathers and daughters.
Sweet week.
The
best week.
And I was, again, yearning for time with her, beginning to yearn for spiritual return. And this camp every night at the Big Top, has a talk. And the first talk is basically, who's going to be Lord of your life, and about surrender. And I'll never forget, the talk closes, and Bruce invites you to come to the hay bales.
Yeah.
And I just like sprint to the hay bales.
I got to get there ASAP.
And just am weeping. And it's like, okay, God, this is, and it felt like I was home, and it felt like, hey, Adam, where are you? And that was me saying, I'm here.
So good.
I want to go for that walk. And leaving that week, one of the staff came and sat down next to me and said, I feel like I'm supposed to talk to you. And I said, this is what's going on. I said, I think God's asking me to give up things and lead a completely different life. And she's like, if you'll radically surrender, he'll do things that you could never imagine. So that night, the last night in the Big Top, I'm like, God, I'll do whatever. And I felt like he kind of gave me a mission of like, you focus the next 12 years on your family and your kids. And that was 12 years was basically when my youngest would be going to college. He says, I'll do things you can't imagine. And so,
praise God. Because I know the end of the story, man. And I'm like, oh man, keep going. Sorry.
And I tell Elise that next day on the way home, I think one of the things I need to do is be closer to you. I was in Brookhaven there in Roswell, and I was kind of halfway between work and their house. And we get home. The very next day, she sends me an email with a listing of a house that had gone on the market down the street from them while we were at Sweet Week. And I was like, oh boy, this is real. Can you kind of come back from the camp high and you're like, okay, is this going to stick? And like day one, this is, and it's like, okay, I gotta be. And then you know that they have a 6-week commitment, and I'm trying to do my daily commitment, and I'm in the Word, and for the first time, the Word is like just jumping off the page. And somewhere in there, God leads me to Nehemiah within like the next few weeks after that. And as I looked at Nehemiah, it was him, the story of him finding out that Jerusalem has been completely destroyed and his heart being broken and wanting to go back and rebuild it. And as soon as I dropped into that text, like God laid on me, like, this is you. You burned down your own Jerusalem, but I'm going to send you back to rebuild it. And so buying that house became part of the Nehemiah story of going back into the family to rebuild as much as I could from afar.
And it's down the street from the house that you
down
just
the street.
left.
And if you look at Nehemiah, it's a city building mission, it's a financial mission, it's a spiritual mission, it's a cultural mission, and it's a 12-year mission. And so the number that God had given me was the same number that's in Nehemiah. And you realize he rebuilt the walls in 52 days, but it took 12 years to actually rebuild the entire city. And it was like all these things. And then right on the heels of that, Laurie comes to me and says, hey, I'm in debt. And she would, if she was sitting there, she would say, I mean, the settlement was very generous. She had enough to live on, but had made some choices. And I felt like immediately God said, I want you to take on her debts. And that was like a massive pain point from our marriage, where we had never really been on the same page financially, and I felt very disrespected. And so to walk back into that part of our story and our pain felt like, God, you can't be doing this. And I'm not even married to her. And like, this is so far above me. I'm just going to put at risk what I'm trying to do for the kids' financial stability with the money I have left over. And so it took us into this place of where now I ask her to take some steps of accountability. And so we're kind of enmeshed, and my therapist is like, this is a disaster. But the net of that was we had a few conversations that began to happen around this, where we began to understand some of the dynamics of our relationship. And in the middle of that, COVID hits. And so then life shuts down. I have this new house, walking to and from, doing dinner together. She's going to my house in the morning to use my Peloton to work out and get some space from the kids. I'm sitting there on Zoom while they're doing school. And in one of those conversations around finances, I basically got a hold of what it felt like when she did certain things that felt disrespectful and hurtful. And I was able to really name that. And I think she'd seen who I was and that I was changing and my heart was different. And she was learning that and she was changing. She's like, it finally, the penny dropped for her, like, this is how he's felt, and felt really wounded. And she saw me in my pain versus in how I had pained her. And I'll give her just an incredible amount of just so thankful and credit that she was able to sit with my pain in spite of how I'd pained her. And for the first time, we kind of saw each other as two wounded individuals, which we all are. We're just trying to get closer to Jesus. And I think for the first time realized that our marriage had basically created this deep wounding in each other. And we had thought about marriage in just the absolute wrong terms. Like, marriage is not for me, not for my wife. It's not for me to be fulfilled by my wife. It's for me to learn to be fulfilled by Jesus. And marriage is the tool of sanctification if I'm willing to accept it.
Yeah. In 30 seconds, since this hard reset, what's your life been like?
Yeah, so the quick capstone of that was that she still wasn't ready to get remarried. And I finally asked her at the end of 2020, I asked her a couple of times that year to consider it. And then out of the blue, in the end of 2020, she just kind of said yes, which was shocking.
You asked to have her back.
Well, actually, I asked her a couple of times, and then I met with, like, on December 30th, basically to kind of lay out some things I needed from her to think about, to kind of co-parent, given some of the financial things I was doing for her. and I kind of laid out a vision for our family. I said, this is what I want our family to be. I'd love for you to be a part.
Wow.
If you don't, I'd love for you to be a part if we're married or even if we're not married. And here's kind of what I'd love for that to look like. And basically she said, okay, let's give this a shot. So we got remarried in 2021. And, it's absolutely the most incredible thing to begin to try to get in touch with just how deep God's love for us is. And that no matter how far we can run, I love the picture of the prodigal son. And again, the Message translation, it says, the father, when he saw the son, his heart pounding, he ran out too. And it's like, as soon as he sees us, his heart's pounding. And I think my whole view of marriage is radically different, the whole reason for it. And I love what feels like our relationship now is two people trying to pursue Jesus side by side versus two people looking at each other, trying to meet our needs through each other. And then in doing that and each individually surrendering, how do we invite our kids? And that's been that whole process of coming back together hasn't been easy. It's been wildly messy in some ways, and particularly working through some of the kids' pain. I mean, as you know, I've got challenges there. I got a few kids that are still very angry.
Sure.
One of my daughters hasn't said I love you in 3 years. And learning how to, and I know that deep down she does. We have a good, I think mostly good and healthy relationship. But I think she feels scared to go there. And for me to learn how to just show up and be present with her again, how can I be present with her where she's at, and the pain that I've caused her, not asking her to forgive me or to demanding anything, but just to say, hey, babe, I'm here. I love you. I'm going to make your bed. I'm going to take you to whatever, have these conversations, watch these movies that you like to watch. What does that look like to be present? And what does it like to be a family that's present with each other and that pursues Jesus together radically? Those are the questions that we're trying to grapple with and figure out every day. So not easy, but that's the
well,
in our
I'm
world.
So grateful that you took the time to come on. I know that this is going to help a lot of people that maybe are battling it or going through what you went through in 2016 and 17 till present day. So how could someone reach out to you if they're battling that? Like, what would be the best way for someone to get in touch with you?
That's a great question. I assume Hard Reset has a website.
It sure does.
Certainly could reach out via that. I would just say, and Travis and I would talk about this, the enemy is intent on destroying, and he is persistent and crafty and quite patient and waiting for the right moments to come after us. But we would always say God is more patient and God has a longer story, and God is relentless in his pursuit, and he's on a eternal rescue mission to redeem even our greatest pains, and that no story is ever over, and the stories may not end like we want them to, and not every disappointing, heartbreaking story has a happy ending, but God's going to do something and can do something if we'll surrender. And I remember, what was told to me at JH, if we'll surrender, he'll do things we can't ask or imagine. So
good. Well, thank you for making the time.
Thank you for having me on.
It means so much to us, and I appreciate you.
Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for the way you stood with me in that time. And I remember conversations with you in the hot tub, and you encouraged me to pursue Laurie and keep after it. So you were a key part of that.
Dude soup.
Yeah.
I remember the next one will tell this, but I remember you on that ball, we were on that mooring ball and we were on that.
Oh, that's a whole,
Yeah. That was an incredible moment, but I want to be respectful of your time. So thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you to JB, as I call him, Jonathan, for being vulnerable and talking about his hard reset. There's so many things that I wish we would have had the time to talk about. One of the things was we were on a boat for my brother's 40th birthday, and the waves were just like crashing over, and we shouldn't have been in the water, but we were in the water, and there was like man o' wars and jelly, like everything, and he's like disoriented, and all I know is that he's like, I don't feel safe. I'm going to swim back to the boat. And he starts swimming back to the boat, but he's going the wrong direction because he's disoriented. He doesn't know what's going on. So he gets to this mooring ball, and he's just like kind of going up and down on this mooring ball. And I swam over to him. I'm like, hey man, let's get on our back and let's go to the boat. And he literally thought he was going to die. Like he literally was holding onto this mooring ball, like going back and forth, like thinking that he was going to die. He told me this after the fact, and he was journaling about it. And that is the moment where he basically went in and was like, Lori, I want to do this marriage thing with you. I feel God's telling me. He was like, he had nothing to lose after that moment of like almost figuring out he was going to die, to like, I'm going to throw everything, all my cards in, all my chips, push all my chips in, and just go after his family. And it's an incredible story. He's such a awesome human being, and he's been through this nasty, messy, hard reset. And I'm just grateful for him taking the time to tell you guys about it, because it is a powerful testimony of God's love for us, no matter how far away we get from it. But also, like, in the right circumstances and moments, like, God can make marriages be renewed again, and he's living proof of that. So thank you for watching. Obviously, this whole thing stems from a roofing company, and so what really helps us to pay for these things is buying roofs and roof repairs and roof washes and gutter cleaning. So if you know of someone that you can refer to us, we would be so forever grateful for that. But really excited about starting out this second season with you guys and seeing if we can create a little life change in your life. So we'll see you on the next episode.